I think we're
All
live.
right. We're live. Hello. Good morning to my West Coast family. Good afternoon to the East Coast family. I hope everybody's doing amazing today on this. Well, at least on the West Coast, it's beautiful. Hopefully, it is just
Yeah.
as beautiful on the East Coast. Thank you so much to those who are joining us today. We are here to talk about goals, the
Yes,
power
yes, we
of
are.
precise goals,
Yep.
the power of
Yep.
precise goals. So, um, my name's
And I'm really
Ashley
looking forward to
Watterson.
this
For those that,
conversation. No, go ahead.
oh, it's a little bit of a delay. Sorry for those. Um, just introducing myself, my name's Ashley Watterson. For those that do not know me, I am an organizational development consultant and coach with Vision Clarity. And you all know Seth already.
No, they know you too. So no need for introductions. We're here to just really help equip leaders to think differently about their teams, to think differently about how they can motivate and manage and encourage people to really achieve higher levels of performance. And that's something that we really focus on and specialize in Vision Clarity is how do we help teams and leaders unlock their potential? How do we help them experience transformation, right? So that you can actually reach the goals that you've set for yourself. So we're looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Seth, as I was reflecting on, goal setting, I think I shared with you, I love goal setting, but I can't say
Hmm.
that I loved goal setting like 5 years ago. And specifically before I knew what it meant to set precise and very strategic, smart goals, I had no idea what that even meant. So to be exposed to the power of precise goals is something that I'm really excited to talk to others about who may also not understand why it's so important and how impactful it can be to, really fuel and drive that performance that you're talking about.
Yeah, and if we think about it just on a human level, I think every single human desires progress. Like that is a fundamental need that is built into every single one of us. We want momentum, we want progress, we want meaning. And goals are the bridge between where we are and where we want to be. They really help fuel that progress. I was meeting with my coach last week, and we were thinking about 2026 and what that would look like for us. And we started thinking about goals, and I got excited. I was like, "Oh wow! Like, yeah, let's go." There was something about setting that goal for 2026 that really just like it enlisted me, it engaged me. I felt like while I may have come into the conversation a little, just flat and average, when I left the conversation, I was like excited and pumped up. And so I think as leaders, we just want to, I want us to fully understand that if we're not pulling that lever, then we're leaving performance on the table. And that's something that we've said before. We're leaving performance on the table for our teams if we're not pulling the lever of setting precise goals. And so I think it's worth a conversation around how do we set goals? Why should we set goals? When is there ever like an over abuse of goal setting, right? Where you're setting too many goals that it has an adverse effect? And what is that tipping point?
Right. And I mean, I think, as you're saying that, I mean, we set goals in all areas of our life. I don't know if that's what
Yeah.
you were talking to about, with your coach, but whether it is personal goals, professional
Yeah.
goals, I think what we're talking about really applies to all aspects of your life. So I want people to keep that in mind too. But, from your perspective, Seth, like, you know, I mean, why even set goals in the first place? I mean, you talked about
Yeah.
wanting to have that momentum and that performance, but I think, there's also a little bit more that we know about why goal setting is so important outside of just having a vision of like I want to be here
Mhm.
next year, but there's something I think underneath that a little bit more. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, well, we can just start by saying like the research is like replete. It is so thorough and aligned. It is scientifically validated that one of the primary ways to boost performance is through clear, specific goals. And when we say goals, it's not just motivation, it's not just rah rah, but it's like It's research backed, empirically and tested. Like that is how you can actually move the needle on your team. And like you said, like for yourself. I think the challenge is that too many leaders, we give vague goals, right? And
Yeah.
earlier this week we released a LinkedIn newsletter where we talked about, the problem is that so many of us we have vague goals. A vague goal is like, oh, do your best or increase engagement or just try harder, right? And vague goals leave teams feeling frustrated, it leaves teams feeling stuck, right? And so we want to make sure that we're not just giving vague goals, but we're actually giving goals that are precise and that are targeted and that will actually move the needle and elicit some type of engagement energy from the individuals. I mean, just think about, I mean, I coach people, you coach people, and a lot of times, the coaching crosses between personal and professional coaching. And anytime someone says, "Oh, I just want to lose weight," well, how much weight? I don't know. I just want to be healthier. Like that is so vague. Like that's not going to actually drive you to make the sacrifices to invest in the workout and the diet, the things that are necessary in order for you to reach that goal. You actually have to have a very clear, compelling, time bound goal in order to for it to elicit a level of energy and response that will move you forward. So when everyone says, "Oh, I want to be healthy," or "I want to save money," or "I want to get out of debt," or "I want to, reach this particular income," and that's on the personal side. On the professional side, if it's, we want to reach this revenue or we're trying to accomplish this goal, like if it's not clear, if it's not specific, if it's not measurable, right? They talk about SMART goals. If it's not
Hmm.
actionable, it's not realistic, if it's not time bound, then you're leaving performance on the table.
Yeah. Oh, when I learned about SMART goals, that
Yep.
changed my world. Absolutely. And the other point about setting those time-bound, specific, measurable goals is around, how far do we stretch ourselves, right? Like
Hmm.
how large is the goal? So if I want to lose 40 pounds, is that realistic? If I want to increase revenue by $1 million next year, but I'm only making 5K right now. Right? Like really
Right.
thinking about like what is the goal that is stretching me, but also a goal that's like realistic, talking about realistic goals too, and managing that balance between I really want to stretch myself, but I also don't want to set a goal that is too far beyond my reach because it may block me from feeling like that it's possible that I have the potential to do that. So what do you say to those that are trying to find that balance between the stretch and reality?
I think, I wrestle with that, and I'm glad that you surfaced it. I wrestle with it a little bit because what who determines what is not reality,
Mm.
right? So for you, you might say, you know, I want to make $1 million next year for your business. Or you might say, I want to lose 40 pounds. Well, I can point to someone who made $10 million last year. I can point to someone who lost 100 pounds last year, right? And so for you to say, or for anyone to say, well, I don't know if 1 million is realistic, or I don't know if 40, 50, 60 pounds, losing that amount of weight is realistic. And if I have too big of a goal, then I'm gonna get discouraged. I don't think it's the goal that discourages us. I think it's the pathway that discourages us. So because you can't see how you go from having, let's say, $150,000 in revenue to $1 million in revenue, or $500,000 in revenue to $5 million in revenue, because you can't see that pathway, you get discouraged in the process. But if we can set a goal that is compelling enough, and we can also introduce you to the pathway of reaching that goal, then it almost feels like it takes it out of the realm of unrealistic and brings it into the realm of
Mhm.
possible. And I think that's something that we really want to work with individuals on and leaders on is there has to be a point where your belief system about your ability to accomplish a goal and your belief system about your team's ability to accomplish a goal, it expands into the realm of the impossible to the point where the impossible seems reasonable. So you can go to your team and you can say, "Hey, next year I want to triple our revenue. I want to quadruple our revenue." And because of how you're framing it, because of the belief that you're leaning into, your team will come away feeling like, "Let's go." Like, let's
Mm.
like, yeah, he sounds crazy, but he might just be right. Let's see, right? Or she sounds crazy. They might actually be right. Let's see. And so,
Mhm.
yes, we want the goal to be realistic, but I would just challenge any leader out there or any individual for that matter to really make sure that they're not using too low of a standard to determine reality for them. Right. A lot of
Mm.
times we base reality on what we have accomplished in the past. And I don't believe that we were created to live based off of what we were accomplished in the past. I believe that we are created to live future oriented, future focused, what is in front of me, and are there other people around me who have accomplished more, who have reached that goal? Maybe there's people who around me who have reached the goal with less. Who do I need to know in order to reach this goal? And if I can engage in that type of conversation, it expands my belief system so that now what once felt unrealistic now feels very much so plausible.
Yeah. When you say pathways, for me, what I interpret that as is the strategies that you need
Hmm.
to implement to reach those goals. So even the SMART strategies can be very smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. Um, and I think that for leaders who are setting these, bold goals, these, what people may feel like is crazy goals, unrealistic goals, it is easier for your team to see those goals to be realistic and possible and for that to fuel that if there are strategies behind it that your team can lean on and think about, okay, if we do these strategies and we have these metrics in place and we can go back and measure them, okay, we can make this happen. But James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits, you could have the same goal. You and I can
Yeah.
have a goal of running a marathon in by the end of the year. But if I don't have strategies to make sure that I'm able to run that marathon and you do, you're
Right.
more than likely going to reach that goal. I will not, because I have no
Yep.
strategies in place. So I think that's really important for leaders to think about and individuals think about. It can't just be a goal without intention, without a path, like you said, the pathway forward.
Pathways.
Yeah, the pathways to get that done.
Yeah. One of the best ways to determine the pathway is to ask yourself and to ask your team this one question. What must be true in order for us to achieve this? So if you're saying to yourself, "Hey, we want to lose on an individual level. I want to lose 100 pounds this year." Okay, what must be true for you to lose 100 pounds, right? If you want to triple your revenue, right, this year, what must be true in order for you to triple your revenue? If you want to reach more clients, reach more customers, grow your bottom line, if you want to increase your engagement scores on your team, right, what must be true in order for you to do that? And if we can answer that question, that becomes like the gateway into the strategy. Because a lot of times, and I've seen this, you've seen this, a lot of leaders, we are really good at rinsing and repeating. Right. We're also really good at stealing other people's ideas and other people's strategies. Oh, this team is doing this or that company's doing that. Well, let's adopt. And what I just realized is that those approaches of rinsing and repeating what's worked in the past or borrowing best practices from a competitor, while there is some value in them, it's transactional value. It's not transformational value. Transformational value says what must be true for us. And so if someone asked me the question, okay, Seth, you run Vision Clarity, right? You want to grow your company, you want to, impact more leaders. What must be true in order for you to touch 1 million leaders next year? Wow, 1 million leaders. Man, I don't know. Like automatically my mind starts expanding and I then am forced to enter into a creative brainstorming session with myself, with you, a dreaming session, right? It's based off of inspiration. Like, man, what does need to be true? And we start dreaming and creating possibilities and pathways to actually reach that goal. Now, will we actually reach 1 million leaders next year? We don't know, but I guarantee you, you will reach more leaders following that pathway than you will setting a realistic goal. Well, last year we reached 100 leaders, so this next year we want to reach 150 leaders. right? 50% increase. Okay, yeah, that's one transactional approach, but I believe in rapid transformation. And rapid transformation says set a goal that is so compelling, it requires you to become something different in order to achieve it.
Mm,
And in the process of becoming something different in order to achieve it, you're asking yourself that question, what must be true and who must I become? Right. And so, if yeah, Seth, I mean, I've done a couple of half marathons. I got the medals around here somewhere. Right. I've never done a full marathon, but what must be true for you to do a full marathon? I don't know. I would have to I have to see myself doing a full marathon. Right. What would
mm.
need to be true for you to do? What do they call those things that David Goggins does? Like he does those 100 mile marathons. They're like a decathlon or something. Right. A hundred.
Mm.
Have you ever heard of that? Like 100
I
miles.
that sounds just wild to me.
Yeah.
But
Right. And so for you and for me, people who barely run, right? I don't know, you probably run more than I do. Like 100 miles, that's crazy, right? But it's only crazy because I have told myself it's crazy,
yeah,
right?
right.
It's not crazy because it hasn't been done before. They're doing it all the time, right? And so when it comes to goals, I mean, just kind of like circling, closing the loop, I really feel like leaders, as a leader, you have to expand your own belief system in what you feel is possible. And you have to reach and shoot for the stars. And then along the way, it's not just fluff and aspiration, but along the way, you're challenging your own self concept, you're challenging your own identity to say,
Mm.
what must be true in order for us to actually achieve it? Right? Because who you are today is not going to be, it cannot be the same person you are tomorrow once you reach that goal. And if it is, it's because your goal is not big enough.
Now I want to talk more about this kind of identity piece
Hmm.
because to me the identity and what I hear you saying is about the narrative that we have of ourselves and that we have
Yep.
sometimes of our teams. What
Yep.
are we telling ourselves about these individuals? What do you say to those who are saying if the question is what has to be true in order for me to achieve those goals?
Yep.
What if that's tied to identity? Like, how do we wrestle with shifting our identity or changing our mindset about our own belief of what we're capable of?
Yeah, it's 100% tied to identity. And I think that's where most teams, not just most teams, that's where every team functions, right? I remember it was I don't remember what year it was. It was when LeBron went to Miami. So I don't know. He's been in the league for like 100 years. So it's probably like 50 years ago, right? So it was when he first went to Miami and they went up against Dallas. Someone can fact check it. And Dallas had a point guard by the name of Terry. His last name slips me. Something Terry or Terry something. And I'll never forget Dallas won the championship that year. And after they won, it came out that what is the guy's name? I'm gonna look it up. It came out that the gentleman, the point guard, during the offseason that previous summer, he got a tattoo of a championship trophy on his arm. So before they even started the season, he got a tattoo of a championship, an NBA championship trophy on his arm. And people were calling him crazy because it's like, bro, you haven't even won the championship, and yet you're going to tattoo it on your arm. And I watched some of the interviews, and he was like, yo, I just believed that this was our year, right? And
Mm.
so he went into the year with this identity, at least a tattoo on his arm, that we are champions. And as a result, he went up against the big three, Miami's big three, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, LeBron James. They beat them in, I don't know, 6 games, 7 games or something. I don't remember, but they beat them. Dallas won. And it was like, to me, it was just a an example of someone who chose to believe something about themselves before it was true. And because they believed it, it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, does that mean that every time someone gets a tattoo of a champion on their championship on their arm, that they're going to win that year? Not necessarily. But I think you will be a lot closer to reaching your goal if you actually believe that you are the person who is able to reach your goal than if you are not the person, right? It's what
Hmm.
Henry Ford said. I don't know, 100 years ago, right? Whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right. And so
Mm,
identity is everything. Your team's identity. How do you all see yourself? How do you all animate, right? Do you see yourself as a premium company, or do you see yourself as a low-cost leader, or do you see yourself as,
mhm.
like the bargain barrel, or like how do you what is the identity of your team? And that identity will largely determine the types of goals you go after, and whether or not you actually reach them.
Yeah. I think back to one of your sessions. If you haven't seen Seth's sessions when he's, hitting a little putt-putt golf in the backyard. Okay. You should check them out. They're good.
But
um, uh,
golf.
you were talking about, I think it is important to have this belief in to change the narrative around, where you are and where you want to be, but that's also not enough, right? Like
Mm,
the belief is not enough. There is a level of commitment that is
hmm hmm
required of you and your teams to follow through and to meet those goals.
to
So
execute.
let's talk a little bit about
Yeah.
commitment, the level of commitment that is required from an individual to reach these high achieving goals that, as they have shifted their identity, as they have shifted their belief around what is possible, from the possible to the what maybe the impossible. What are the things that we need to do around commitment to get there?
I mean, everything is sequential. And so someone can say, I could say, if you are struggling with commitment, it's because you're struggling with identity, right? If you're struggling with commitment to actually getting up and working out, getting up and doing the thing, pushing past resistance and hardships and difficulty and conflict, if you're struggling in that area, and you are kind of taking the path of least resistance, hitting the snooze button, not going after the big contracts, like whatever that looks like for you, it's because it's a reflection on what you truly believe about yourself, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
yes, we want the goals to be specific and we want them to be measurable, right? Yes, we want the goals to be challenging, right? So we want it to be a stretch goal. We want it to cause you to come out of your comfort zone so that you actually have to become a different person in the process of achieving that goal. And then, yeah, there has to be commitment, there has to be ownership, but I would say ownership and commitment are the fruit of this belief system. They're the fruit of this identity based orientation around whatever that goal is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the thing. If you commit to a goal, and there are some people, I've done that, I've committed to a goal. Um, and I've achieved the goal, but because the goal didn't really become a part of who I was, after I achieved the goal, there was regression to the mean.
Hmm.
So we can put forth, like, if you say, Seth, I challenge you right now to like go run a marathon this weekend. Okay, sure, I'll do it. I can do it, right? There's nothing stopping me. But if I don't see myself as a runner and embrace a runner identity, as soon as the challenge is over, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna stop running. Why? Because I am
Mm-hmm.
not a runner, right? And so commitment and ownership and everything else that flows as a result of or that flows, let me say it like this: commitment and ownership and everything that is required to reach the goal, in my opinion, flows from a core concept, a self concept that you are the person. I don't know if you're familiar with the Greek mythology, and I think his name is Sisyphus. I think his name is Sisyphus, and you've seen this image before. You may not be aware of the person, but basically, Sisyphus did something to like upset one of like either Aphrodite or Zeus, and so they sent him to hell. This is Greek mythology. They sent him to hell, and his punishment in hell was he had to push a boulder up a hill, and once it got to the hill, the boulder rolled back down and he had to push it up again. And so he spent his entire existence in hell pushing a boulder up a hill only for it to roll back. And you've seen that image before. Everyone's seen it where there's like a man
Mm-hmm.
on a hill and he's pushing this huge boulder. That's the Greek mythology, Sisyphus. And the idea behind that is like, we weren't created to just pursue goals where they have an end and we're satiated, and then that goal rolls back down to the bottom. Like that's not what we're trying to achieve here, right? The pursuit that we're after is a becoming goal. It's not a task that we're trying to achieve. It's a who do we become, so that when we get that boulder to the top of the hill, there's another hill that we have to push it up and another hill that we have to push it up. That's why they say 70, 80, I'm making up these numbers, but I know they're true. 90% of diets fail, right? Like some crazy number of like 90% of people, maybe 99%, I'm making those numbers up, right? But there's some of them are true. 99% of diets, people who go on diets, they'll lose the weight, but then like 3 months later, they go back, right? And I know because I'm one of them, right? I lost 20 pounds and I just gained 20 pounds, right? Right? All of us are guilty. Well, why is that? Right? It's the boulder has rolled back down, right? We reached the goal, and because that goal never became core to our identity as individuals or as teams, the moment we reached it, we're like, oh, great. And then satiation happened, and now we have nothing else to pursue. And so we gained the weight back only to realize, oh, now I got to start over again. Right. And so I think that there is like, yeah, there is this commitment, but there has to be a commitment to that is identity based, and it is commitment to a distal outcome, right? Something that is in the distant, that is so far away that we're not distracted by proximal goals, but we're like leaning into these proximal goals that are actually moving us towards these distant goals.
Hmm. Hmm. I mean, this has me thinking about, you talk about also the newsletter around, learning oriented goals, or like learning goals
Yep.
and performance goals, right? Like the performance goals are only going to go so far. And really, I think a part of the, individual development, leader development, team development, these goals, there is also a lot of research on, yes, performance orientation and performance goals are great, but the learning orientation, the learning goals is really what is going to help, have that impact on us in the long run, because we're learning, we're growing, we're developing, it's becoming a part
The
of who our
becoming
identity
goals, becoming.
is. Yeah, the becoming goals, exactly. It's not just about, okay, here's the number that I reached, or here's the
Yep.
promotion that I got.
Yep.
Here's the amount of weight that I lost, because then, like you said, what's next? How am
Yep.
I becoming a new person, that I set out to be, which I think is really important for people to think about, especially for leaders who are helping to set goals for your teams, or who are helping to develop, your emerging leaders, your high potential leaders. It can't just be about their performance. There has to be
Right.
some becoming. There has to be some learning that's also integrated into those goal setting.
Yeah, so it's like the outcome goal, the achieving goal, right, that we set for ourselves, which is challenging, which is inspiring. But then there's also the becoming goal, the learning goal, which is who must our team become, right? That's a learning goal. Who must our team become? Well, in order to reach this goal, let's say you're trying to launch a new AI company into the marketplace, and you're like, man, we really need to pivot. We were in healthcare, but we really need to pivot into AI, or we were in, let's say a grocery store, right? A grocery chain. Traditionally, people come to them, but now we realize that people want more home deliveries. If you're like my wife, like she ain't been in the grocery store in like years, right? Because it's all Uber Deliver or whatever the app is that she uses, right? Everything is delivered, and so a grocery store has to say, okay, yeah, our core competencies up until this point have been like supply chain and like getting groceries low cost into the store and setting up this beautiful environment that is like colors and engaging for people to buy and fill their carts with groceries. But now people aren't going into the store, so we have to pivot, and now we have to figure out some type of tech solution, AI/tech solution, software solution where we can deploy our app, and now people can still access our groceries, but from the comfort of their home. So the question then becomes, who do we have to become as a team in
Mm.
order to achieve that? In order to make that pivot, who must we become? What must we learn? Well, we have to become someone who's proficient in SaaS, or we have to become someone who's proficient in, tech or AI. And so now we start to put our resources into those learning goals, those becoming goals, because we know those becoming goals are going to help us reach our achievement goals.
Hmm. Yeah. It all goes back to identity. It all goes back
It
to
does,
identity.
right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
Netflix, I mean, there's tons of examples, and I've used these in my keynotes. I know you use them as well. Like talking about Netflix when they made the pivot from, I don't know if you remember getting like the DVDs in the mail, right? And you would like get them and then you have to mail them back. Like their original days to
Hmm.
now everything is streaming. They made a pivot. They were like, I thought we were this type of company, but now I realize we're this type of company. Spanx, Sarah Blakely had to do the same thing. She built a $1 billion company, really one person at a time, and she was like, I thought I was going to be doing this, but now I'm this. So it's all about this identity and who we are becoming. Excuse me, and just recognizing that um, as a leader, what I want from you is I want you to be encouraged and excited about the goals, the clear, actionable, specific, stretching, challenging goals that you are engaging with your team. I don't want you, if you think about the Old Testament, Moses went up to the mountain and he brought back down the Ten Commandments and he was like, this is what God says, right? I don't think leaders should necessarily take that approach, right? It's like, this is our goal, right? Now go do it. I think there needs to be like shared collaboration. So I want to sit with my team.
Yeah.
I want to collaborate. I want us to wrestle with it. I want us to come up
Hmm.
with these shared goals. But as a leader, it has to be your responsibility that if someone says, okay, team, I think we could run 5 miles. As a leader, I want you to say, well, what would need to be true for us to run 10 miles? Like the leader, your job is to stretch. So whatever your team comes up with, great. And then take it one step further, right? What would need to be true for us to do, you know, 2x, 3x, 4x? What would need to be true for us to, and let that question just sit on your team. And then whatever they come up with, get excited about that. Get
Hmm.
excited about. I don't know if you've heard of the honey. What is it called? It's like the honeybee. Have you heard of the study that was done on honeybees, where basically what they said was some researcher, back in the 70s, he did this study and he discovered that when a bee finds honey, it does a certain dance. They actually call it the waggle dance. It does this dance to signal to the other bees that they found honey. And what this study showed is that the more vigorous the dance and the more like excited the bee was, it was a signal that the honey that they found was like that much better, right? And so
Mm.
bees that are like shaking everything that their mama gave them, right? It's like an indication that like, yo, the nectar that we found is like legit. It's worth the trip. And I think leaders do the same thing. It's like a leader, you send a signal to your team. If you are excited and you are communicating the destination, and if you are energized about whatever the distal goal is and the proximal steps that you need to take, the pathway you need to take to get there, it sends a signal to your team that the land is rich, like the destination is ripe, it is sweet, and it's going to be phenomenal once we reach it. And then it gets everyone else excited to go on that journey as well.
Whew. I mean, I think, for some leaders, they're like, I just don't, that's not my energy.
Yeah.
So, what do you say to those that are, you know, struggling maybe with, sorry, can you still hear me? Um,
Yeah, 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 we got you.
that, what does it take for a leader, I think, to feel as compelled and as energized around like when I think about like even different cultures, like the way that we come off and share our vision is maybe different to other people. And so are there, strategies or ways that you feel are like key and foundational to no matter who you're talking to, how do you get that buy-in from people to also feel bought into this vision that you have, this really this goal that you have that maybe again other people are not bought into, and maybe it is not necessarily about identity, but like how do you communicate that
How do you
excitement to
get
somebody?
energized? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to be like a woo. You don't have to have woo, right? Like you, right? Ashley, one of her strengths finders is woo. So you don't necessarily have to have like this bubbly, energetic, excited personality. You just have to be able to communicate with clarity. And you're communicating with clarity in a way that resonates with your people. So, number one, as a leader, you need to know your people. What motivates them? What are their drivers, right? There's this concept called individualized consideration, right? You need to know the people on your team and what excites them individually, what's driving them, what are their motivations, so that now when I go to you and I'm communicating, hey, this is where we're going, I'm super excited, I can frame it in a way where I know it will land and resonate with you because I know you
Mhm.
and I know what gets you going, right? So yeah, you need to be able to communicate with clarity, and that is not a personality trait. Communicating with clarity is a skill that you can learn, right? It's a
Yeah.
skill. So communicating with clarity, but then also it's not creating goals in a vacuum. So it should be a shared goal. You want buy-in. There's that old saying, you've heard it before, people weigh in before they buy in, right? And so if I want my wife to be excited about this house, then I should probably bring her to the house first and be like, hey, here, take a look. Like, here's the rooms, right? And let her kind of like feel it out before I sign the dotted line. All right. So there is that. I want to bring my team along with this is what I'm thinking. What are you all thinking? Right? What would need to be true
Hmm.
for us? Is this possible from your perspective? Are there any limiting beliefs or identity barriers that we're running up against when we think about this goal that really
Hmm.
it's not, it's just in our mind, it's not really reality. And so I
Hmm.
think there's some skills that a leader should be able to learn so that your waggle dance, right, using that bee analogy, your waggle dance will really signal like this is good and we should go after it and we should really pursue it. I
Hmm.
think the other thing I would say actually really quickly is I've worked with leaders who have that high personality, very energetic, great communicators. And I think a challenge that a lot of extrovert, I'm like generalizing, a challenge that a lot of extrovert leaders might experience is coming up with too many goals. And if you come up
Hmm.
with too many goals, too many proximal goals, that will leave your team discouraged because you just did a waggle dance last week about this goal, and now you're doing a waggle dance this week about another goal, and then next week you're going to be doing another waggle dance about some other goal. Like, what exactly are we doing, right?
Hmm.
And so as a leader, you don't want multiple goals, right? You don't want multiple things that you're trying to pursue and trying to communicate. You really want to focus, you really want to consolidate, and you want to be very clear. Here is our one distal goal. Here's the proximal goal that we're working on right now. And there might be some sub goals, but they all lead to this one outcome.
Yeah. Um, yeah, because I think for anybody, like too many goals, it's just too, it's a little overwhelming,
You're doing too
right? Like
much.
it's a lot
Doing too
you're
much.
doing too much. Maybe that's why I'm struggling right now. I'm doing too much. No, I got too many goals. Too many
Both. Too many
goals.
goals. You and I both. Facts.
Now, I think we have maybe a few more minutes,
Yep.
or do we have a little bit more time? I don't
Yeah.
know. I what one thought that I had was to me what you brought up was around maybe some obstacles that people are thinking as it relates to their goals, and I think to your point it's so important to get that collaborative discussion around goal setting, because sometimes people can bring up obstacles that maybe you're not thinking about, right? Like you need to sometimes clear the path for your team to achieve those goals, and addressing those obstacles is really important because you can set strategies around those obstacles, right? Like you have to
Yeah.
acknowledge them, but you have to do something about them as well. So I think that that's important to have those conversations, get everybody around the table, um, to get that weigh in so people can get that buy-in, but everybody feels a part of the conversation because you're now looking at it from multiple
Mm,
angles. And ideally
yep.
your goal and your strategies are going to be that much stronger because you have
Yep.
these potentially opposing perspectives, or they you may not even realize the impact that it's going to have on your team member. And what you're setting this goal, but now what does that mean actually for the work that you're telling me
Yeah.
to do with maybe with what is already on my plate. Goes back to your point about that individual consideration, really knowing who your team members are and like what they're doing and what's motivating them. So I think it really all ties together in that. um, I mean, I think there's a lot, to me, there's a lot of takeaways from this conversation, but I think we can't go without acknowledging it should be a shared conversation, and that we can leverage resources, like whether it's resources in terms of technology or whether it's leveraging resources from our peers, from our counterparts, from other departments, whatever it is. Like, we have to also expand our thoughts about like how to accomplish those strategies. It's not just the individual person.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to get other people into the conversation, into those goals with us to help us actually accomplish those goals. So if I know I want to improve my public speaking, and I know that I lack brevity, whatever it is, and I'm like, oh, Seth, he is clear, he's to the point. Part of my strategy, I need to talk with Seth. I need
Yeah.
to have a
Yep. Yep.
conversation with him about how to be a little bit more brief about what what I'm saying. That is not just something that I have to do by myself. Um, and I
Yeah.
think that's for those that are feeling like, wow, this is a lot of weight for me to take on this goal, and I have to do X, Y, Z all by myself. That is not true. You should
Hmm.
bring in other people. You should solicit, support and feedback and
Coaches.
accountability. Yeah, exactly. Coaches to help hold you accountable and to ensure that progress is happening. It's not just an individual moment or an individual
Yeah.
activity that you need to do.
Yeah. I think about the Navy SEALs and how the Navy SEALs have, I mean, they are clearly like the top of the top when it comes to like military
Hmm.
operations. Them, the Rangers. I'm sure there's like another branch like that's like the Delta Force. I think is like the three top like branches out there,
Hmm.
or the three top teams. But the Navy SEALs have a lot of popularity, and it it almost feels like there is this. The training that a SEAL goes through, from Hell Week and that whole SEAL thing that they go through, like it is it is raising someone's belief in what they can endure. And I think as a leader, what we have to do is we have to raise our team's belief and then give them the experiences that validate that belief. And then
Hmm.
raise their belief and give them experience. And so we're constantly, it's almost like a stair step where it's like, I, this is who we are, and now we're going to give you training, and we're going to do learning goals and who must be becoming goals in order to validate what we've just told you. And then we're going to raise it up a little bit higher, and then give you more experiences, and then raise it up a little bit higher. And so, someone who starts the military as like a, I don't know, like the lowest level in the Army or the Navy, to someone who's like a fully decorated Navy SEAL, that identity change is significant. And it's significant because not only is there a belief system, but there's also experiences and knowledge and competence and all of those other things, commitment that support who I believe I am. Right. And so it's not like, hey, I believe I'm a swimmer. So then you throw your team into the deep end and they've never swum before. Like, no, it's like, hey, we believe we're swimmers. So becoming goals, let's learn how to swim. Let's expose ourselves and let's begin to raise our floor until we eventually are exactly what we say that we believe we are,
Hmm.
right? And so
Hmm.
it's a phenomenal process. And just wrapping up, I would love to keep the conversation going, but I feel like as the leaders, we want to just encourage you, those of you who are watching, we want to encourage you to make sure that you're leveraging goals, becoming goals, achieving goals, distal goals that are far out into the future, proximal goals that are like 90 days, 30 days, 60 days, 30-day goals, and that you are creating them in a shared context and that you as a leader are asking your team that mission critical question of who must we become in order to reach this goal, and that you're pushing them to think a little bit differently about themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Per usual, Seth dropping all these gems on us.
Nah, you you
But
you
I'm
you setting it up.
but I think, if you are in a position right now where you're thinking, I need to solicit a coach, or I need
Yeah.
somebody to, kind of help me along this process, because you all said a lot of great stuff, but like, what does that mean for me now? Like,
Where do I
how
go?
do I actually do this? Where do I go?
Yep.
Please do not hesitate to, to reach out to, to us, to Seth and I, whether, direct message us, email us. Let's have a conversation, just to get you going. I mean, 2026 is right around the corner.
It's
I
here.
mean, when you said that, I was
Yep.
like, oh my gosh, it's mid-September already. So, let's talk about it. Let's collaborate. Let's co-create. And, we're here to support you if you need it. But, thanks to those that have joined or are listening, afterwards. And, as we say, lead with clarity.
Lead with clarity. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.